Once upon a time they sat together, strangers sharing food. The Pilgrims and the Wampanoag. The year was 1621. A bitter winter had passed. Crops had grown. The English settlers had survived, barely, and they knew why. It was the Lord's providence, and it was the Wampanoag people, the native stewards of the land, who had shown them how. How to plant corn, how to hunt and fish, how to live here, on land they themselves had lived with for thousands of years. And so they gathered, to eat, to celebrate, to give thanks. It wasn't called Thanksgiving back then. That name came much later. And the feast wasn't turkey and pumpkin pie. It was turkey, venison, mussels, corn, and eel. There were pumpkins, yes. Indigenous peoples had been cultivating them for thousands of years, alongside corn and beans. The Three Sisters, a brilliant agricultural system that sustained entire civilizations. But there was no pie as we know it. No butter crusts, no cinnamon spice blends, no ovens. Those elements came with the colonists. European baking traditions, wheat flour, and ingredients like sugar, nutmeg, and dairy, which weren't part of the Wampanoag foodways. Still, the seeds of the dish were already in the fire. The Pilgrims and Native Americans would have eaten roasted pumpkin, possibly sweetened with maple or honey. It wasn't pie, but it was a fusion of two worlds, one offering the harvest, the other bringing new techniques to prepare it. Like much of that first feast, it wasn't just a meal. It was a moment of possibility. A recipe unwritten, shared across cultures before history rewrote the story. A 3-day harvest gathering, a moment of peace. But this feast, like so much in American history, carries a question few are brave enough to ask. And yes, a promise, a fragile one. A moment of peace before a long history of broken trust. A promise of friendship, of alliance, of coexistence. One that America would soon forget. Because the next 400 years that promise unraveled. Massacres, broken treaties, forced removals, boarding schools, cultural erasure, genocide. Within a generation, the Wampanoag would lose more than half their people to disease, war, and betrayal. By the 1670s, many of their villages were burned, their autonomy shattered. And by the time Thanksgiving was declared a national holiday, in 1863, Native Americans were already being pushed westward, again and again. Made foreigners on their own lands. And it is important to say clearly, disease, displacement, and colonial violence work together, not as accidental forces, but as the machinery of expansion. The devastation was not simply tragic, it was structural. So the question this holiday demands is not just, what are we thankful for? But, who is forgotten in our giving of thanks? Because beneath the myth of the smiling pilgrim and the helpful Indian is a deeper truth. Thanksgiving is not just a holiday, it's a mirror. It reflects a nation born from contradiction, a country that claimed liberty while denying it to others, that wrote all men are created equal, while owning human beings, that broke 1,000 promises to the first peoples, while celebrating the memory of a shared meal. So here's the moral question. This may be the hardest question of all. Does the United States have the right to exist after all the theft, the bloodshed, the dispossession, after the genocide? It's a question with no easy answer, because moral legitimacy isn't just about how a country was born. It's about what it does with the power it holds now. And here's the contradiction, maybe the paradox, of America. The same nation that broke its promise to the Wampanoag also gave the world something new. A political experiment, liberal democracy, the idea that the people, not a monarch, hold the power, that rights are not gifts, but guarantees, that law must serve liberty, not control. These are powerful ideals, but ideals are not absolution. You can't wash away genocide with elections, and you cannot fully repair it with elections alone. You can't erase slavery with the Declaration of Independence, and you cannot undo founding crimes with founding words alone. And so, we live in the tension. A nation that has failed and risen, denied and dreamed, betrayed and built. A country where the sins are foundational, but not final. Because whether America deserves to exist depends on what America becomes, not what it proclaims about itself, but what it is willing to confront, repair, and protect now. This is why Native voices call Thanksgiving something else entirely, the National Day of Mourning. Not because gratitude is wrong, but because memory matters more. Because you can't truly give thanks on stolen land. without first acknowledging the theft. Because mourning is not weakness, it's honesty. And in an age when educators are silenced, libraries are stripped, and truth itself is labeled divisive, mourning becomes not just remembrance, but resistance. So, what do we do with this day? We remember. We learn. We tell the truth, the full truth, to our children, our communities, our country. Because today that truth is not only neglected, it is being actively threatened. And we rebuild the promise, not just in symbols, but in action. Land acknowledgements, yes, but also reparations, cultural sovereignty, education, partnership. This is the work of tending the commons, not as metaphor, but as moral infrastructure. Not guilt, but responsibility, because the past cannot be changed, but the future is still unwritten. And patriotism, real patriotism, is not defending comforting lies. It is defending the fragile, difficult truth and doing something with it. This Thanksgiving, you'll hear stories of survival, of struggle, of unity. Make sure you tell the whole story. Remember who made the feast possible. Remember who paid the price for the promise broken. And remember this, you are not powerless. You are the storyteller now. For only when the truth is told can we begin to heal. And what happens next is up to us. Live the Renaissance spirit, tend the commons, honor the promise,